3 showers. Today, I had to take 3 showers. It was just a humid day. It got up to 33 today. We had some rain in the afternoon, cooled things off quite a bit. But after the rain stopped, it really got humid. And we had a leak from our toilet tank that was dripping onto the floor, caused a little puddle to accumulate. In the middle of the night, I would step in this puddle, and I hated that. So I took an empty 2-liter Pepsi bottle, and I cut it up, and I made a sluice, kind of, I guess you would call it, a little to divert the water that was dripping from the toilet tank. So I propped it up so it wouldn't drip on the floor. It would instead drip into the shower drain. And I was a little proud of myself for making that. But really what I should have done is gone to the home improvement store, bought some silicone gel, and disassembled the toilet tank and fixed it. But we're renting the house, and so I felt obligated to go through the maintenance guy. And so he came by and disassembled the toilet, and then my wife's cousin, who's living with us, does our cooking and laundry, and amazing cook. She's fantastic with soups. She told the maintenance guy that she was having trouble with the kitchen sink, and kitchen sink had gotten stopped up a couple of times, the drain. So he took all that piping out. So anyway, I'm running around trying to help him, and going to the corner store, the Saudi store, buying some ice cold water bottles and Gatorade bottles. And the Gatorade bottle I bought him was glass. I had to use the bottle opener to open up the Gatorade, and I thought that was great because, all these plastic bottles, pollution. Anyway, they're starting to make the small bottles out of glass, at least here in the Philippines. So there's quite a bit of running around. We've got the rent coming up, and our rent is 20,000 pesos a month. One of these days, I really need to do a breakdown of our budget. We're trying to stay under 80,000 pesos a month, but we are a family of 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah. And Lola, my mother-in-law, is going to be going back to Mindanao here in another month. So we will be 6 after that. But, our 70-year-old grandmother of our babies is not really a financial load. Okay, so that's not going to really cut down on our budget much. But anyway, we've got a budget of 80,000 pesos a month, and I can only take 10,000 out at an ATM at a time. So we do a money transfer. We use Zoom, XOOM, to transfer money to my wife's sister, who's an RN and lives with us, and she's out and about quite a bit, and so we transfer money to her. It's easier for her to go to the mall and pick it up rather than my wife, because my wife's still breastfeeding our baby. So anyway, that's more running around, and I needed 3 showers today. And lately, there's been health warnings from our home in Texas, where we also live in Brownsville, Texas. We still have our home there. And it's 38 there. So 33 is 91, okay, and 38 is quite a bit hotter. All right, so I don't know, 100. So it very seldom gets above 100 in Brownsville. That's rare. Brownsville's usually around 93, 94. Except when a cold front comes through in the wintertime, you'll have highs in the 50s or maybe 70s. And that's for a couple of weeks sometimes. In February, I think it was 2014, we had the whole month, it seemed like, in February in Brownsville was 40 degrees and rainy. So it does get cold there, but it's unusual. It's usually pretty warm there. So I got accustomed to the heat. So to me, the Philippines isn't that hot. 33 is very different from 38. Usually, okay, maybe the high here in Cavite will get up to 34, perhaps 35. We've had a couple of days where it's gotten up to 35, but I've been here since November, and it's June, so it's 7 months we've been here. And there's only been one time that I can remember, and my wife didn't even remember this when I told her, but there's only been one time that I can remember that I told my wife, I'm going to turn on the AC, and I'm going to go take a nap, because I'm usually very comfortable with a fan, and oftentimes I'll fall asleep without a fan. Today I fell asleep without a fan. My wife was horrified by that, but it feels comfortable to me. But it was another one of those days when I took my third shower and I realized that I'm accumulating some dirty laundry here, that it really gave me pause, and made me think about how I got here, and made me remember all the complaints I've heard from so many expats about going to the Philippines and how difficult it is to date a Filipina. And so I thought I'd chip in a little bit about that, okay? There's some real difficulties about being here. There really is. I really don't understand why anybody would move to the Philippines to retire unless they've got some kind of family connection here, like we do. We've got a lot of family here. The Philippines does have English as their second language. It's required. All the schools are in English. So anybody you meet that has a college degree is going to speak very good English. Anybody you meet that completed high school is going to have passable English. Now, I've been to General Santos City. I've been to Cebu. I've been to Cebu a couple of times. I liked it. Cebu City. Mactan Island, of course. Boracay. I've been a little bit around Luzon, mostly just Metro Manila and Batangas, okay? And maybe a little bit of Laguna and Cavite, of course. And I've got to tell you that everywhere I've gone, I've had a great time, and I've had no problem communicating with tricycle drivers, taxi cab drivers, people at the hotels, security guards. I've had no trouble, okay? Everybody speaks passable English that I've run into. I can't say that I've found anybody that speaks decent Spanish at all. Although I know they exist, I know there's Chavacano speakers out there, but I've been trying for a while to find an attractive young lady that might be interested in a Mexican friend of mine who is getting ready to retire, would like to find somebody that would help him in his life and help take care of him and so forth. And I can't find it. So Spanish is hopeless here. But English is very good, okay? So you do have that. It's not like Japan where you're not going to be sure if what you bought is actually shampoo until you try it. Maybe it's hand lotion. I had that happen to me in Japan. Shampooing my hair with something that turned out to be suntan lotion. Thailand, Vietnam, China, those are all going to be problems because you're never going to know what people are saying in the background. You're never going to be able to read the signs, the advertisements. You're going to have trouble at the supermarket. It's difficult. It's difficult, okay, going to a place like that. Mexico is right there next to the U.S., and Mexico has great health care. They've got clinics that are open 24 hours a day, that 7 days a week, that are like $20 US dollars for a visit, okay? And you pay an extra $5 for your x-ray, and you get to keep the x-ray. It's just kind of cool. I lived right on the border for 25 years. Whenever I was sick at work, I just went over into Mexico to get a doctor's excuse. I'd see the clinic there because it's a lot less hassle for me. I speak acceptable Spanish, and I just never had a problem. I grew to really trust Mexican doctors more than the American doctors. But that's another story for another time. Mexican dentists are far superior to anything I've gotten in the U.S. And I used to have problems with my teeth, and I don't anymore because I went to Mexican dentists, and they fixed the problem. They don't want you to keep coming back again and again and again, like in the U.S. But that's a story for another time. But the Philippines has excellent health care. Okay, speaking about that, I think Mexico is a little bit cheaper. But, we gave birth here. And my wife spent 3 days in the hospital and 2 nights. And a private room. It was a great room. Cable TV had really good AC, air conditioning. They had hot water in the shower, and so I was taking showers every time I could over there because we don't have a hot water heater here. The food was really good at the hospital. Um, you know, it was great, and the whole thing was maybe 86,000 pesos, 88,000 pesos, something like that, roughly like 1,600 US dollars. And I told my wife, I said, that's 4 months of our insurance premium in the U.S. And we had to pay 400 a month for our Obamacare. And that was really good insurance, actually. I mean, I was really happy with that because it was my wife, me, and our baby, the three of us. And the three of us were covered. And it was a maximum payout per year of like $5,200. Something like that. So if we'd given birth in the U.S., we would have paid about $10,000 because we're paying a little bit over 400 a month, so it's roughly 5,000 a year for the insurance premium, and we would have filled up the $5,000 max payout for sure with surgery, and it would have had to have been a C-section. So in the Philippines, we're saving money with medical care, and I get that. If you're looking for a place to retire, that's it's inexpensive. Everybody speaks English. You can easily get around and talk to people, and you can easily buy products, and your money goes a lot farther here. I get that, but the thing is the culture is it's deceiving because you think that because everybody speaks English and the Philippines used to be part of the U.S. and anybody that's over 80 is going to have had American curriculum in their schools, that you can buy cheeseburger and pizza everywhere, okay? It's going to be like the U.S., but it's really not. The culture is really very different. And there's a lot of bachelors that come here thinking that it's going to be a piece of cake to marry a Filipina, and they just have a really difficult time. And that's simply because the Philippines is a very religious country. And the way I can relate that to you is try to imagine, okay, if you're from England or you're from Australia or you're from the US, you're going to get this, okay? Try to imagine somebody who's really into football. Now in the US they call it soccer, but the US also has American football, so it kind of translates well, okay? Now these guys go to the football games and they paint their faces and they memorize the chants and the cheers and they really get into the game, okay? In the 1980s we had a movie called Diner, and in the movie there was a wedding, and the groom required the bride to pass a test that he wrote for her to prove that she knew enough about the Baltimore Colts, which was the football team at the time for the city of Baltimore. So she had to take a test and pass it before he would marry her. If she flunked the test, the marriage was off, and she was nervous about that. Now, there's actually guys like that in the U.S., and that's true. There are guys that are really crazy about American football. Now, this has faded in recent years because American football has become heavily politicized, and it just makes people nauseous. And so, thankfully, I've always been a baseball fan. I like American football, but I'm really into American baseball. And I like American basketball better than football, and I'm not really that much of a basketball fan. But baseball's a much, much more beautiful sport. But football, okay, there's still a lot of people, even though it's kind of a second-rate sport now in the U.S., there's still a lot of people that are really, really into it. Now imagine this, okay? If you're in England, you can imagine somebody that's crazy about Manchester or Birmingham or Chelsea, okay? Imagine a Filipina is going to marry this guy, okay, who's a just crazy football fanatic. And someone asks her, aren't you a little worried about the cultural difference here? I mean, you don't even know anything about this sport at all. And yet, he's really, really into the sport. And imagine her saying, oh yeah, but it's just a game. It doesn't really have anything to do with love. Okay, now picture that guy, who's going to go to the, Manchester football game, football pitch every week, that he can, and just scream and get into fights and get into drunken brawls and do the chants with his buddies and everything. Okay, she's going to be completely out of her depth, and they're really going to have a lot of difficulty in their marriage right away. And you can see that, okay? If somebody's really into American football, they're going to watch the game. They're going to listen to the news broadcasts when there's not a game on. They're going to have friends who talk about the game. And she's going to come and be in that environment, and she's not going to know what they're talking about or why, because it's just a game to her. But to them, it's something much, much more. Okay, now, that's what it's like to come to the Philippines from the U.S., because the U.S. is not a very religious country. It's not. I am a very religious American, and I'm looked at like I'm an alien by people that are in my family, okay? They just don't understand it. They can't understand. In the U.S., religion is like green beans on a big dinner table. Okay? It's nice to have green beans. Some people like green beans. Okay? But you can eat the whole dinner without touching the green beans, and nobody's going to think anything different about you. Okay? Some people really like the green beans, and they're going to eat a lot of green beans. And some people don't like it. Okay? But it's kind of nice having the green beans at the table. All right? That's the way Americans look at religion. But if you understand religion, especially Christianity, and you're born again in it, like I am, and it's completely changed your life, okay? You realize it's a lot more than green beans. It's a lot more than green beans. It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. And you're going to be around people who understand that. And you're going to want to be around people that understand that. And that's why I've had two very good marriages to Filipinas. My first Filipino wife passed away in 2007, and it took me a long time to recover from that. Okay, so it's easy for me to fit in here because I get it. It's like a Filipina being a total soccer nut, a total football nut for Birmingham, okay? And she marries a guy from Birmingham that's totally into football. Okay, you can sit back and say, you know what, that marriage is going to work. Okay, they're going to understand each other. And that's why Americans come here and they think, everybody speaks English. All these women are so beautiful and they're friendly. And they're willing to consider a marriage with a guy that's 25 years older than them. Okay, never mind that women all over Latin America, women in Africa, women in Vietnam are also going to consider marriage to a guy 25 years older, okay? So was Juliet in Romeo and Juliet. Remember that? They were trying to set her up with Paris. And remember, Juliet's mother was telling her father that she's a maid at this age that I was already a mother. And the father's cautioning the mother and says she's not seen the change of 13 years. So Juliet's 12, okay, and they're going to marry her to this Count Paris. And the mother's saying, well, I was already a mother at her age. And the father's like, hey, she's not 13 yet. So, okay. So in English history, people were married at a young age, and they married men much, much older. And that's why, if you look back in history, that's why so many women died in childbirth. But that's another story for another time. But so much of the world is like that. It's not just the Philippines, okay? So guys get carried away with that. Half, I'd say about half. If you go to the province, maybe it's the majority, 2/3 of women that are single have never had a boyfriend. And they call that here NBSB, and that's no boyfriend since birth, NBSB. Now, my first Filipino wife was 29 when we met. And when we married, she was about to turn 30, okay? No, she was 30 when we married. She was 29 when we met. She was 30 when we married. I was her first kiss. I was her first boyfriend. I was her first and only husband. Okay, and she used to tell me, and we'd get in fights, you know, we had arguments, and she'd tell me, I don't understand how Americans can talk about divorce. Because for a Filipina, you can get in a fight with your brother or your sister. And sometimes there's brothers and sisters that haven't talked to each other for years. You can separate your family from your family, but they're still your family. They're still your blood. So that's the way a Filipino family is going to embrace the groom after the wedding. He's going to be part of their family forever. That's the expectation. They're not going to expect prenuptial agreements. They're not going to understand that. That's why the Catholic Church won't marry you if you have a prenuptial agreement, because you're not getting married in a Christian manner. You're not getting married with a Christian attitude. And Filipinos aren't going to understand that. And for Americans, that's, of course you're going to have a prenup. What are you, crazy? You know? So it's a different world. It really is a different world. So, to sum things up, I had 3 showers today. It was hot, even for a guy from South Texas, okay? But I don't regret it. I love living here because I'm like a key that fits into a lock. I'm a really religious Catholic guy living in a really religious Catholic country. And I have no problems getting along with my wife and her family. We all have similar expectations. We all have very similar beliefs. We all have very similar interests. We all talk about very similar things. I still haven't learned enough Bizayan to really talk to her cousin or her mother yet, freely. But we try. And they can see my attitude and interest when we go to Mass or when we go to confession, okay? But Americans that are not religious are not going to understand that. And they're not going to fit in, and they're going to have a really difficult time. They're going to be able to live here without a problem, okay? You can walk around, you can go to the mall, you can go shopping. It's easy. And your money's going to go far. When I used to come here on vacations, I'd bring about $1,000 cash, and I'd be giving $100 bills as pasalubong, as gift to my wife's family. And I would go home with like $180 that I just couldn't spend, even though I bought all my own clothes, because my luggage would be full of gifts to give to everybody. And I'd buy all my own clothes and shoes there. But shoes are like 300 pesos. It's like $5.80 for a pair of nice shoes. your jeans are going to be tailored at the mall. I've never had jeans cut to fit, and then you choose what kind of seam you want on the end of your pants from this like little catalog of different kind of seams you can have. I've never seen anything like that in the US. It's going to take me 10 days to get something fitted and altered and sewn like that. I'm going to spend $180 doing that. And here it's like, it's at the mall. Everybody has their jeans custom fitted. So the clothes here are fantastic, guys. The food's fantastic. You're going to lose a lot of weight. I'm just walking constantly. I hate my Fitbit because it shows that I've walked 10,000 steps all the time. But I'm chasing after a 3-year-old, okay? So the Philippines is a rough place. The one difficulty that you really need to understand is how difficult it is to get here and how difficult it is to get back. It's really difficult to get back to the U.S. It's exhausting. And coming back here is exhausting. You're probably going to get sick. Going back to the U.S., you're probably going to get sick coming back here because you're going to be wiped out. It's really exhausting. It's difficult. Mexico, you can drive to Mexico and you can drive back home if something happens, okay? You really need to think before you come to the Philippines. It's really a different world here. Well, have a great day, everybody. Take care.